Hello, this is Truby Chiavello with Primo Magazine, and I'm coming in today from Washington, D.C., July 2nd. And we got 2 more days to go, folks, until we get the barbecue out and the fireworks, and we celebrate another birthday for the great United States. I can't wait for it, July 4th. Such a great holiday and such a great time for all of us. And it's great to have that here in the United States. But I'm coming to you today, and we're going to talk a little bit about the news from an Italian American perspective. And we got 3 places we're going to focus on today. That's Newton, Massachusetts, Syracuse, and the Big Apple, New York City, and what this all means to us as Italian Americans. It's all politics, of course, it always is. And we're going to look at that and the latest events and where we stand and what we can do about whatever is happening. And, Newton, Massachusetts, it's right there about, 8 miles from Boston, west of Boston. I guess you would call it a small city, about 80,000 residents. And the mayor there, Ruthanne Fuller, this is her last year as mayor. She's probably, what comes in November. And this will be her last time. She's the first female mayor of Newton, Massachusetts. Strong connection to the Italian Americans, the Italian American community there. And you got to ask yourself, what could be so offensive for red, white, and green, the tricolors of Italy? Well, back on June 26th, they have these colors all on the roads there to signify where the Italian American community was in Newton, Massachusetts, and they cover manhole covers and other types of things. Well, she decided to paint over them in yellow. So it looks like, it's the kind of yellow that you see when you're driving on the highway, you're driving on the road, the passing lane or whatever it is. And so that was covered by the Public Works Department there. And this was brought to our attention by the Italian American Alliance, and they've done a tremendous work there in Massachusetts. They fought the good fight all along. And the Italian American One Voice Coalition, another excellent organization, they've gotten involved. In the dead of night in Newton, Massachusetts, the Public Works Department did this. And here is the St. Mary of Carmen Society. They have an annual Italian festival there, July 16th to July 20th. This is going to be their 90th year. So it's an important part of our heritage there and our presence to have a place where we signify where the Italian American community started and rose and continues. And the tricolors, the red, white, and green on the roads. Well, she has written back to the Italian American One Voice Coalition. I got a note from Andre Domino, leader of that organization there. And she says, "Oh, it was a mistake, of course, and we'll bring back the colors, and this is good. And we have to keep on it. We have to make sure she follows through on it. And the reason we want to know is why. Why would she do this? Why would the Public Works Department in Newton, Massachusetts, cover the red, white, and green? And I'm going to come out and tell you what I think. And this is my opinion, and it's not shared by most people and most people in the Italian American leadership and community. But this has to do with anti-Italianism. This is the reason why it is. She will deny it, of course. The mayor would say, "Oh, no, this is not the case." But it is. When you see it happening all over, the attacks on Columbus Day, the attacks on our Columbus monuments, the statues, other things as well. And now the tricolors. I mean, if this happened one time here, one time there, maybe I would probably say that this must be just, an accident or whatever it is. But this is happening all the time, folks. And the reason why this is because of this. Italian Americans are Roman Catholic, and we're very pious, and we're also very visual, and we're very expressive, and we're very proud. We're very proud of our Catholicism, and we plead to the saints for intercession. We go to mass. We have our churches. We tend to go back to the old neighborhoods where our churches were to worship. The morality, the moral issues, the hot button topics that are there nowadays, we tend to stand on the other side versus the left-wing politicians that are trying to push their own agendas. And we tend to also reside in the urban areas. We tend to be the social conservative voices in the dense populated urban areas, and they hate it. The left-wing politicians can't stand it. You find them everywhere, and they like our food, of course, but they don't like the fact that we stand for the quote-unquote old ways. We still believe there's a hell, and people are going to go there, and they don't like that either. And I kid you not. And this is the reason why it is. They want to push us out. They don't want us to get involved in governance because they see us representing the old beliefs. And Karl Marx said that you have to censor out the old beliefs because you don't want them to come along and change your utopian vision. And so this is what's going on. But anyway, that's just one community where we're fighting. We're fighting all over the place, and we have to keep it up. And I applaud the Italian American Alliance. I applaud the Italian American One Voice Coalition. I applaud anybody who's out there fighting for us. And you go further south from Newton, Massachusetts. We're right there in New England still, and you go to Syracuse, New York. And we've reported on this on a number of occasions. We've interviewed the people involved. Syracuse has seen better days, like a lot of cities have. But there's one thing they have. They have a beautiful monument there devoted to Columbus. It's almost 100 years old. It's been there in the middle of what used to be St. Mary's Circle. It's now Columbus Circle. And, it was put in place by the Italian immigrants and the first Italian Americans that were there. And that Ben Walsh was the mayor of Syracuse, and he tried to tear down the statue. And let me tell you something. The Italian American community there, they formed the Columbus Monument Corporation. What an incredible group of fighters. You had everybody on side of the mayor wanting to tear down this public artwork. You had the mayor, the city council, the universities, the media that was there, the historical society. They all wanted to tear down the statue. When that happens, they kind of censor out other voices. And so here was an organization, Italian Americans, they couldn't get their voice out. Well, they went ahead and they circumvented it. They put out their lawn signs. They had an incredible website. I think they've even bought billboard signs to get their message out. And they had help from the Italian American media, like ourselves here, Primo. We spread the word out for them as well. And this is very important to have a strong, vital Italian American media. And so let me just give you a plug here. Please like and subscribe to our video. Please visit our website, onlineprimo.com. Please pick up our magazine. Primo, please sign up to receive our e-newsletter because we're committed to get you the information you need about the struggles that we have currently, the Italian American community versus a lot of people. And we have to get the word out. And we did that with Syracuse. We helped, and they've been fighting the good fight there. But what happened was he's out. Ben Walsh, the mayor, he's going to leave. He's finished up his second term, I believe. And they had a primary last week, and they had several people running. The person that we supported and that the Columbus Monument Corporation told us about was Patrick Hogan, was a city councilman, and he's hands off the monument. Let's leave it alone, folks. Let's keep it there. But the person he was running against, Sharon Owens, she wants to continue the fight that Ben Walsh started back in 2020. And she's a Democrat, and she's going to be the first black female, and she won the primary, the Democratic primary. So now she goes to the general election. And, all things aside, she's probably going to win it. It's a Democrat city. But this is what I find interesting. How many votes did she get in the primary? She got 4,711 votes. 4,000 votes. And with that, comes the power to tear down a statue if she's going to try. That's been there for almost 100 years. Here's a city of about 150,000 people, 90,000 registered voters. Yet, this woman, she shows up, she gets elected, and she's going to tear down a landmark. So this is why I believe we need to try an additional activity to prevent this from happening. We've been taking it through the courts, and we've had some incredible attorneys on our side. George Brachetto, foremost, an incredible man. They're based in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. Basil Russo, as you well know, the Conference of Presidents of major Italian American organizations. So many other people who are lawyers on our team have pursued this to the courts. They've won a lot of battles. We've lost a few also, but nevertheless, we've done tremendous work in the legal front. Like I mentioned to you before, we've had Andre Domino, my friend Tommy DiMagella. They're up in Massachusetts, in New Jersey, the Middle Atlantic region. They have shown up at all the municipal meetings. Anytime there's a controversy, they have fought tooth and nail to preserve Columbus Day and to preserve our statues and monuments. But what I think we need to do in addition is we need to go through the state legislatures. We need to get a bill passed that basically says if there's a statue, if there's a monument that's been there for over 25 years, wherever it is, in a park, in a traffic circle, wherever, you can't touch it. You can't tear it down, no matter how many votes you get, no matter if you've been elected. If the statue or the monument's been there for over 2 decades, hands off. And this is what I think we need to do to protect our heritage and the heritage of a lot of people. Right now it's the Italian American community that's being assaulted. What's next? You're going to have another community out there, another ethnic group that's going to have their statues and their monuments threatened. So this is why I think we have to try to get a law on the books in each of the state legislatures. This is what happened in the Deep South, if you recall, about, what was it, 6-7 years ago? You had a number of Confederate monuments and statues that were being torn down. And, you have a statue there for a good 150 years and, praising some sort of general or a figure of the Confederate South. They always said there was a demographics change, but it really wasn't all that much. But a mayor would come in or whatever, and he or she would want to tear down this edifice. And what they did is they put the laws on the books. They passed a legislation that basically said, if the statue's been there for longer than 25 years, you can't tear it down. And this is not only applied to statues and monuments, but it applied to names, names of high schools and bridges and things. And we just can't let people who come in, a political figure, I mean, he's there for 4 years, or 8 years maybe, and all of a sudden change the whole landscape of things. I was visiting Baltimore recently, and this is what they did there. There was some Confederate statues in Baltimore, and some other statues as well, and they've been there for years. That's where Nancy Pelosi grew up. That's where her father was a mayor for many years. And in recent time, they went ahead and tore down statues. So when I was visiting Baltimore recently, you're driving along and you see these pedestals, and they're empty. There's nothing on top of them. And, it looks silly. It doesn't look well. They say they were going to replace them. They said they're going to put new statues in there, but they don't. That's really not the governmental function anyway. You have to take a group of people, volunteers, that have to go ahead and put that together. So, this is what's happening. What they're doing is they're making the place a lot uglier than it used to be. They're taking down the artworks. And the best way to stop it, I believe, is through the legislature, to get laws in the books. Excuse me. So, anyway, that's why I think we should try to focus on. So anyway, we're going to keep an eye on Syracuse. We're going to do everything we can to support the Columbus Monument Corporation there and the Italian Americans who are fighting the good fight. We're going to do everything we can to keep this beautiful statue there in Columbus Circle, because that's what it's all about. You have to fight these fights wherever they show up. And now we go down to New York City. And New York City, of course, had their primary last Tuesday. And, you had Andrew Cuomo running for the Democratic nomination. He had to resign back in 2021 under a terrible cloud that happened. And this was supposed to be his big political comeback. Well, as you well know, he lost. He lost to Zohran Mamdani, a man who was born in Uganda, about 33 years old. His parents are from India. And he won with 545,000 votes. And Cuomo had about 428,000. Now, there's about 5 million registered voters in New York City. And why this is important to us? Well, Andrew Cuomo, for all of his flaws, he hands off on the Columbus Monument. And Eric Adams, he also agreed to this. We have not just the Columbus Monument, Columbus Circle, we also have one in Brooklyn. We have one in Central Park that was vandalized a couple years back. And there's one in the Bronx. And Andrew Cuomo, Eric Adams, and Curtis Sliwa, the founder of the Guardian Angels. And he's running for mayor in the Republican side. He's half Polish, half Italian. They've all agreed that they're going to leave the Columbus monuments alone. Mamdani, however, he's been silent about that. And he's running as a socialist. Well, let me tell you, folks, socialism has failed everywhere it's tried. And this is something. The media has not challenged Mr. Mamdani on his socialist philosophy. And the political opponents haven't either. But we're going to do it. I hope to have a video to look at what he's all about and what he's going to pursue. The question you have to ask yourself is, if socialism failed in Soviet Russia, it failed in China. I mean, China, they still have the hammer and sickle and the red flag, but everything else is capitalistic. In India, where his family's from, they tried socialism, and still they put it in their constitution, in fact, and they failed. If all those countries have failed, and you have Eastern Europe and a host of other countries, if socialism failed there, why does he think it's going to succeed in New York? Why does he believe that all these countries, with all their resources and all their availability that they have of all kinds of things, if they couldn't make it work there, how does he feel that he can make it work among the 5 boroughs? You had some of the most impressive people, some of them quite evil, in fact, but nevertheless, they did everything they could to make intense socialism work, and it didn't. I'm not sure why Zohran Mamdani is the right guy for the job. So this is something we have to look at. With Cuomo losing this primary, and he's not one of my favorites, but nevertheless, I thought it'd be a good opportunity to talk a little bit about him and his father, Mario Cuomo, and to give people a little bit of an understanding of New York politics. I grew up in Bergen County. I grew up right outside of New York City. When in my front yard, you would turn left, the skyline was right there. I grew up within the shadow of the Empire State Building. And I worked there. I spent a lot of time there. I spent my 7 days and nights there. Ed Koch was the mayor at one time. You had David Dinkins, you had Giuliani and Michael Bloomberg. And then you had Bill de Blasio and now Eric Adams. So I know well the city. I've been to all the 5 boroughs. I've been all over the place in that area. And my kids went to college there. And so I know it very, very well. And, when I was coming along, you had the city was bankrupt, right? It had all these problems. And then the big thing was in 1977, you had the mayor's race. And that's where Mario Cuomo came on the scene. Mario Cuomo, he ended up being the 3-term governor of New York. And he was running in 1977. And he was running against Ed Koch. And Ed Koch, if you don't know him, you go to a bookstore, you can read, you can buy books about him. They often praise him for his mayor, but he wasn't that great of a mayor, by the way. He was very funny, very vocal, very pro New York. But the city, I mean, I worked there, I lived there. It was still quite dysfunctional under his leadership. But he was running in 1977 against Mario Cuomo. And Cuomo had been a lawyer who represented a group of people who resisted a development. And then he was asked by the governor to mediate a dispute between residents and some developers. So that's how he got his name in the media. He was working in some other capacity for the governor at the time, and he ran against Koch, and the Democratic primary was very close, but he lost, and there was a runoff, and he lost that, and then it was expected he was going to drop out. Well, he didn't. What happened was he was nominated by the Liberal Party, and he decided to keep running until November. Well, like father, like son, Andrew Cuomo, he lost this primary, but now he has his own political party, and he's going to keep running. So this is what his father did, and this is what he's going to do. Didn't turn out well for his father. He got Mario Cuomo kind of came down and dirty a little bit against Ed Koch. He said some things about him, and when the November election rolled around, Koch won. Well, Mario Cuomo, he wasn't finished. He went ahead in 1982. He ran for governor. He was lieutenant governor under Hugh Carey. And Hugh Carey was the governor. He didn't want to run anymore, so Cuomo was going to run. And sure enough, who challenged him but Ed Koch, mayor of New York. And, the polls had Koch ahead all the time. But what happened was he was in an interview, and he said, the suburbs are boring, or are not the place to be, and I don't look forward to my time up in Albany. This is what he said. So this turned off a lot of people in his candidacy. And Cuomo won the Democratic nomination, and he went on to win the governorship. Now, why is Mario Cuomo so important? If you're like me and had parents who were Italian American, my father was, his family, my grandparents were from Campania, and he was Italian American. He was a Democrat. A lot of people were Democrats back then. They could have been, it was more of a union party, really. In those days. And a lot of people thought that Mario Cuomo was going to be the first Italian-American president. They had thought that, they had paid their dues. My father, he served in World War II, as did my uncles, a lot of people I knew growing up, the parents of friends I had. And, they were assimilated in American society, and they just thought the time had come. That somebody like Mario Cuomo, governor of New York, could make a run for it. And they were persuaded by this when he was the keynote speaker at the Democratic National Committee Convention in 1984. It was in San Francisco. And he gave a speech, and it remains one of the best speeches in American politics. Extraordinary speech. He was a great speaker. He had marvelous diction. I think he wrote his own speeches, if I'm not mistaken. And I remember well when he spoke at the convention. And, I thought he ended it kind of soft a little bit. It was an amazing speech. It had a lot of passion to it. The applause were thunderous the whole time. And it was full of history and political knowledge, economic knowledge. But he kind of ended it just saying that, San Francisco is is named after St. Francis of Assisi. But nevertheless, it was an A-plus speech. And everybody thought that he was going to be the Democrat who was going to run against George H.W. Bush. Reagan won a landslide in 1984, and he handed the baton off to his vice president, George H.W. Bush. 1988, Cuomo, he wins re-election to the governorship, and now it's time for him to run for president. And this is what everybody thought. But he didn't commit. He vacillated. And people gave him the term Hamlet on the Hudson. And I remember when I was political science, I was a student in political science, going to college, undergrad, and then we had a cocktail party club of ours, and we had some older people that were there. And one of the people said that he's not going to run because of La Familia. That's what he said, making a reference basically that Mario Cuomo was connected to the mafia. And I thought that was very, very sad because this is all the way in Pennsylvania near Pittsburgh. And I knew enough about Mario Cuomo to know that he had no connection to the mafia. He was a man who achieved the American dream. He was I believe he was the son of Italian immigrants, but I know that they came from Campania. They came from Salerno. Well, that's where my grandparents came from, and he grew up in Jamaica, Queens. I believe his parents had a grocery store there, and he was going to be a baseball player. He was going to play for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and he was in the minor leagues, and he got hit with a baseball, and it was a serious injury. He was out for a good week in the hospital, and so he decided to give up on baseball and pursue his education. And he got his undergrad degree, and he went on to St. John University Law School, and he graduated top of his class. He was tied, I think, for number one in his class. He was a brilliant attorney, but he couldn't get a job in the law firms in Manhattan because he was Italian. And he decided to work in Brooklyn for a law firm there. And he represented a number of people. I believe he represented Donald Trump's father at one point in time. But and then he got involved in politics. And so, people thought the time had come for an Italian American to run for the presidency. But I believe he didn't, he chose not to run. And I think a couple of reasons why that was. In 1988, actually, the economy was still going well. Reagan had some tremendous successes in foreign policy, the end of the Cold War. And so the American people were ready to vote to still vote Republican. But I think a key reason why he didn't run was, I don't know this for sure, but this is my assessment, my opinion. I was alive and well then. And I think he realized, unfortunately and sadly, that the country wasn't ready for an Italian American to run for president. The country wasn't ready for somebody of a Mediterranean background. I think he probably read the tea leaves. He would probably not win the Midwest, the Deep South, and he probably wouldn't have won California. So, it would have been a serious loss on his part if that was the case. And so he decided to stay out of presidential politics. I think he turned out right if that was his thoughts, because the Democrats ended up nominating the governor of Massachusetts, Michael Dukakis. He was the son of Greek immigrants. And, in the debate, you would see it. Here was this, Bush, tall, Anglo, and next to him was this short, swarthy governor of Massachusetts. And I hate to say it, I think it's very sad, but I think that might have had a part to play in it. The country wasn't ready for someone of a Mediterranean ethnicity. Fast forward 4 years later, Bush is going down in the polls, and people still want Cuomo to run. And he claimed that he might not run, or he might run also. Again, he vacillated. It was this Hamlet situation that was going on. And it all depended, he said, on the New York budget. And, apparently there was a plane waiting for him on the tarmac. He was going to go up to New Hampshire. The New Hampshire primary was underway. But apparently they wanted to write his name in on the ballot. And apparently he said that the budget wasn't solved, and so he couldn't run. This is what he said. However, I believe that he, again, read the tea leaves. He, again, read the internal polling, and people just weren't ready still for an Italian-American president. They still aren't ready. When you consider Giuliani's run for the presidency and other people. So it went to Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton won the nomination. And because it was a three-way race, Ross Perot was running. That took votes away from Bush. The Democrats finally won the presidency after 12 years. And I'm sure that affected him. But Mario Cuomo, 2 years later, he's running for governor again. He's going to go for his fourth term in office. And he's going to run against a state legislator by the name of George Pataki. Nobody really knew what he was. Nobody knew where he came from for the most part. He was half Italian, as it turned out. And, Cuomo had a problem a little bit. He really, I don't want to say he was a snob, but he really considered himself very, very important, a very important man. It was often said that he was brilliant, and maybe that went to his head a little bit, but he couldn't understand how this person challenged him, considering all his knowledge about government. But the election was underway, and the results were just incredible. Pataki, when you saw this, the state of New York, the visual image after the election, it was all red. It was all red. It was like a giant tomato. And there was just like one little county in Albany that was blue. And it was even, some of it was red in New York City, in Staten Island. He couldn't win all the boroughs. He lost Staten Island. And I think he lost by 4 or 5 percentage points. A serious loss on his part. And that was the end of him in politics. And he kind of just, drifted along after that. He was involved with things here and there, but nothing all that extensive. And, had this man with a lot of passion, incredible speaker. But the political career ended in 1994. Well, he handed off the baton to his son, Andrew Cuomo. And Andrew Cuomo, he ran for governor. He was elected in 2010 and served until 2021. And he, too, did about 3 terms in office. And his last 2 years were awful. It was the COVID-19. At first, he looked like he really had an understanding of what was happening. If you look at his governorship, let me just say this about him. If you look at his governorship, you see that he actually did a lot more for the Democrats than his father did. And some of the things that he passed were controversial. But in 2020, COVID-19, he didn't work with President Trump. He began to fight President Trump. And he did something that really remains controversial, because you had people who were in the hospital, elderly people, and they maybe had an operation of some sort or whatever. I guess if they were under Medicaid or Medicare, they were going to be sent to a nursing home. And in that hospital, he might have had somebody who had COVID-19. Well, he said the protocol was that the nursing homes who were receiving these people, they couldn't test them for COVID-19. So those people were probably carriers of the disease, and that spread in those nursing homes, and elderly people died. They were very susceptible, particularly if they had pre-existing conditions to COVID-19. And so he has to bear some responsibility for that. And then you had all these claims of sexual harassment and sexual assault. They were all over the place. And in 2021, and he tried to fight it by saying, he was Italian. When you're Italian, you like to kiss people and hug them and do all these wonderful things. Nobody bought it, everybody, and no one thought that was why he did what he did. If that's the case, so he had to resign. He had to resign because they were going to remove him from office. But that being said, the places where apparently these incidents occurred, the counties that were there, the district attorneys, dropped the cases. They didn't pursue the cases against them. So, leave that for what it is, I guess. But he's trying to make a comeback now in New York, and we have to keep an eye on this. We have to be a part of this New York race, because he's an Italian. If you're a Democrat, you might want to support him. If you're not, you probably don't like where he stands on the issues. You might look at other people. Curtis Sliwa, for instance, Republican, he founded the Guardian Angels. Let me tell you, what he did was quite incredible. I remember there in New York City, you would go take the subway. There was no police anywhere, and you thought you were going to get mugged. And sure enough, you would see one of these Guardian Angels show up. And they were brand new on the scene. They knew how to do martial arts. They knew all there was about citizen arrests. And they were condemned by the politicians. Ed Koch had condemned them. He said that he wasn't too fond of vigilante squads. Well, that's great, but where's the police? Why aren't you sending the police to stop this crime wave? And I think we're under a similar situation now in New York. And so he's running for mayor. And Eric Adams, for all his flaws, he was critical of the Biden administration because they sent a bunch of migrants. They're crossing the border. Nobody cares. And the Biden administration sent a bunch of people up to New York, and he criticized it. He complained about it. He complained about it publicly. And what happened? Lo and behold, he gets indicted by the Federal Justice Department. And let me just say something about him. People complain about him, but he's far better than de Blasio. He inherited a mess from de Blasio. the previous mayor, and I think he's better than Dinkins. Dinkins, although he had some good points about him. But let me just say this about him: he's as good as Koch. I know people are gonna shake their heads about this, but I was there. Ed Koch was funny. He was pro New York. If you go to a bookstore and you read a book about him, they're going to praise him. But I was there. The city was very dysfunctional under his watch. Huge crime wave. Things didn't work half the time. So I don't know if Adams is any worse than Ed Koch. And Ed Koch went on to win 2 or 3 terms after he was first elected. So I don't know, but as things stand, if he's unworthy of reelection, I say that. I'm sure people are out there going to say I'm crazy or whatever, but that's how I feel. Anyone's better than Mamdani. Anyone's better than Zohran Mamdani. So we're going to follow up on this because what he's all about, this new candidate, I think that socialism, it's not going to work for him. And so he's going to look for a scapegoat. This is what they always do. And the scapegoat's going to be history. It's going to be Columbus. You mark my words. And I'm sure he's going to try to make a move to tear down one of the Columbus monuments and statues we have there. But more than that, he's going to intrude upon and take away the livelihoods that Italian Americans have prided themselves on in New York. He wants to open up a grocery store. I mean, I can't imagine that's going to work. He wants to freeze rents. He wants to get the government involved in the in property development and landlords and other things. He wants to defund the police. That hasn't worked well at all in any of the places it's been tried. They did go through the rent control, the whole thing at one point in time in New York, and that didn't work. So I think he's going to have an adverse effect on New York City in general, but I think Italian Americans are going to be seriously affected. So that's why we have to fight this. We have to fight a lot of things. We're always fighting. That's because there's just been a change in the dynamics in the political situation. An anti-intellectualism that's out there that doesn't seem to understand history or forgets history, forgets what's been tried. New York had a renaissance when they elected Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani was mayor, and he changed the city. He stopped crime. He got the city to function again. The city entered a renaissance under his watch. And then, he was an outstanding mayor, probably the best mayor they've had over the last 60, 70 years. And then when he was finished, you had Michael Bloomberg, a billionaire who inherited a well-run organization from him, and he continued it. He was an outstanding mayor also. So New York was blessed with, almost 20 years of outstanding management of their city. But then they decided to go in the opposite direction. If you're going to go in the opposite direction of what works, you're going to be left with something that doesn't work. And that's what's happened so far in New York. So we'll keep an eye on it. We're going to keep on reporting all the news that's there as we possibly can. Newton, Massachusetts, Syracuse, New York, and New York City. And these are just some of the battlegrounds. Massachusetts is a battleground. New York State's a battleground. Pennsylvania's a battleground. All the states are battlegrounds because they're doing anything they can to eliminate our heritage, and we have to fight it. And that's what it's all about. So, and they're fighting it. They're fighting Columbus. They're fighting Columbus Day. They're fighting Columbus statues. But we also have to fight how they want to change our lives, how they want to take away our livelihoods that Italian Americans have prided themselves on. Everything from the food business to the small manufacturing, the small mom and pop businesses. The Italian Americans are involved in the police departments, the fire departments, and they want to diminish that. So we have to fight in all phases. We have to fight for our faith and our Catholic faith and how that's treated in some communities. So that's a lot of fighting, but it's also a lot of fun. And I look forward to reporting to you all the time. Please like and subscribe to this channel. Visit our website. It's www.onlineprimo.com. We have a new edition out, Giuseppe Garibaldi. It's a wonderful edition of our magazine, so please consider buying a copy, buying a subscription. And I want to wish you all a great, wonderful 4th of July. We're blessed to be in this country. This is the greatest country in the world, greatest country of history. And we're so glad to be here, and it's great to celebrate it. So I hope to talk to you very soon. Until then, thank you, God bless, and happy 4th of July.